cabin?
No. It's Iowa.
Eric, I heard there's these podcasters. They have some really bad movie takes. We got to go after them. We got to get on our horses and get after them.
Well, I'm going after those podcasters, Ben Lewis. Are you coming with me? You got to do what I say when I say it.
Oh, yes, sir. We're talking The Searchers on the Pod of Dreams.
That'll be the day.
That will be the day.
From the thrilling pages of life rides a man you must fear and respect. A man whose unconquerable will and boundless determination carved a lusty, rough, and boisterous slice of history called The Searchers. It's John Wayne as Ethan Edwards, who had a rare kind of courage. The courage that simply keeps on and on, far beyond all reasonable endurance, never thinking of himself as martyred, never thinking of himself as brave.
So we'll find him in the end, I promise you. We'll find him.
Here is a story of a man, hard and relentless, tender and passionate, of people who dared to challenge a hostile land. Here is drama of great love and aching loneliness.
I found him. I found Lucy.
What you saw was a buck wearing Lucy's dress. I found Lucy back in the canyon.
What was she?
What do you want me to do? Draw you a picture? Spell it out? Don't ever ask me. As long as you live, don't ever ask me more.
And if you don't hear my first holler, you better read my mind, because I don't aim to raise no two hollers on any subject at hand.
Yes, sir.
Boy, watch that knife.
Go, Martin, please.
Stand aside, Martin.
No, you don't, Ethan. Ethan, no, you don't.
Stand aside. Looks like you got yourself surrounded.
Yeah, and I figure on getting myself unsurrounded. Let's go!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pod of Dreams. Ben Lewis here with Eric Lane. If you listen, we will pod. Eric Lane, how are you, sir?
I am doing wonderful. This guy, John Wayne, has just brought sunshine to my life. Well, back when men were men.
Oh, he's a man's man.
He's a man's man. Back when movie stars were tough guys. They weren't just the Hollywood leftist elitists. You know, these were real Midwestern men. Why can't we go back to the days of men being not like Chris Pratt, little Chris Pratt? I mean, who is
more
he?
Like Chris Pratt fall? Am I right?
Right.
Ooh, burn. So I mean, you're joking, but there is. So this is an old Western. We're in old territory. This gets me I get a little anxious. Old movies, Eric Lane and old movies, a bit like Oil and Water.
1956.
Yep, I mean, Dwight Eisenhower was president. We're just in scary territory. But when that first song comes on, and we see the title, the little placard on the brick wall or whatever it is, and it's just some like cowboy song, I was like, oh, this is nice. Just hits me how much I enjoy old Westerns for a lot of reasons. It's like, oh, this is good. This feels right. This is now the second time you've seen Searchers. Was this torturous for you, Eric?
No, I also love old Westerns. That is a genre of old movies that I very much enjoy.
Okay, so
it's like a warm blanket kind of. There's something it's like background music, or I like to watch it, but like something about just having it on, it just feels good.
Oh my God, we are in lockstep, because that's how I felt. Just even though I know this isn't like a happy movie, really.
This movie is one of the darkest 50s movies I can remember. I mean, this movie goes hard. This movie goes real hard.
It does, and I love how it goes hard. It does. It insinuates. It doesn't show us a lot. It's not like super graphic stuff that a lot of filmmakers
They don't
did.
mention that the John Wayne's entire family, his brother and his whole family, were like raped and murdered, but they were. I mean, that's insinuated.
No, heavily, and it's effective. It's really effective. It works really well.
Including the little kids. I mean, the girls and little girls, like they definitely hint at that.
But I'm glad that we're not starting on This Is Torture to Watch. This is kind of how I feel about old westerns in general. They're really fun.
One of the greatest movies ever made. Like,
oh wow, okay.
I couldn't argue that.
Okay, all right. So
it's maybe the greatest western. Tombstone I love more, but this movie's flawless.
This is better. Oh my God. Okay, we're burying the lead. This is just going to be a love fest then, because I actually think this movie is flawless too. I mean, I could kind of squint and come up with a couple of things, sort of. Nothing that I think is a major.
Honestly, my only complaint is there's no, like, as far as like classic great westerns, there's no like getting the posse together. That's the one thing that's kind of missing from this. It's really just John Wayne and Martin, the nephew, is not really his nephew. It's really just the two of them on this quest. But there isn't like a let's get the band or the posse, which most great westerns have. That's the one thing that's missing from this.
I guess. I mean, this movie shouldn't have that. I mean, I agree that that's not.
It kind of does, because it has the preacher guy, but those guys
but
are
it doesn't
kind of
work.
Little bitches, and they don't really help.
And we get that, like, we're not big enough to get it by force, and we're not small enough to be stealthy, and they're right, and it works. I mean, they tried to as quickly as they can get to. So, well, we're jumping in. We'll talk a little bit about the plot, but I mean, we get this frontier town in Texas. It's not even a town, really. I mean, it's just like a house, and these houses are pretty far away, and it's just, a few people living out
near the Mexican border, right? I mean, because they end up going into Mexico at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is where my lack of knowledge about history. I don't even think Texas was a state at the time, and we might have had portions of Mexico, might have even been in the U.S. or Texas might have been partially in Mexico. I'm not really sure. They go to New Mexico.
Well, we don't even know what time period this.
We do. It's 3 years after the Civil War ends.
Oh, that's right.
So it ends with John Wayne. So it's 1868 is when it starts.
Okay.
And so we know.
Stayed, and they were like, "Why did you stay after?"
It's like that. The war ended 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's great because we get some character development. We get to see John Wayne being super John Wayne. He refuses to make an oath to the Texas Rangers. I think a man's only good for one oath at a time. He's stubborn. He likes lost causes.
Well, he's also apparently like an outlaw, right? I mean, there's some insinuation that he might have a warrant out for his arrest.
Oh, yeah. He was supposed to turn in a saber. He didn't.
Yeah.
But very fiercely independent and stubborn and tough and hard to kill. And really, really smart.
Early MAGA person, right? No?
Sort of. I don't know.
Wayne would have been a MAGA guy, right? Wouldn't he have?
I don't know. It gives me libertarian vibes in this movie, which is a little different than the MAGA folks, I think. But maybe. Whatever. It's MAGA is such a recent phenomenon. It's very tough to.
John Wayne had some there's some problematic quotes if you want to go find some.
I'm sure he's a racist and Republican, like John Wayne, the person. Just this character. I don't know. I don't know that this character would like Donald Trump all that much, but I mean, whatever. We're really splitting hairs. It doesn't really matter. I mean, he's definitely a hardcore Confederate supporter. Yeah. No, you're fine. Oh, I thought you were being serious. That's fine.
It's interesting making him a Confederate, ex-Confederate soldier, I suppose.
No, it's a good choice. Again, he lost cause, doesn't give up, can't be killed, stubborn. It's all layered into the character development. Confederates got their asses kicked. They lost. He refused to accept the loss. Right? He just wouldn't. It was over, but he said no.
Very Trumpian. There.
Refused. Well, sure.
Sorry to bring it back. That was another bad joke.
No, it's fine. No, I think it's very important that he's a Confederate. It works really well that he's a Confederate, and he's also, even by Hollywood 50s movies standards, very racist. And what's interesting about his character is that he's not racist out of an ignorance. Like, he understands culture and language really well, better than any other character in the movie that's not a Native American. but he just uses that to like perpetuate his own racism. He's like, you got to shoot them in their eyes because that means they can't go to the afterlife. He just knows how to be as vile towards them.
He's had run-ins with the Comanche, which is the tribe that ends up attacking.
Sure,
his family.
but he knows a lot. He knows their lange a lot. I assume most Trekker people.
Yeah.
Correct. He's like cultured. He's smart. He's not dumb. His racism isn't born out of ignorance. Which you could do that. I mean, I'm sure most people that murdered Native Americans didn't speak their languages and didn't probably understand that much of their culture. But anyway, but he gets there. He's back. He's seeing his brother and his brother's family, and that's happy. And it's a nice little romanticized American West family.
I will say, I think the second time you watch this movie, at least for me, that hits so much harder because obviously the first time I knew it was about him chasing down Native Americans. I didn't really know the plot, but having known like the setup where you see him with his niece and he gives the one guy the sword, the one boy the sword, and he gives the niece the little medal, and knowing that comes back later, like all of that stuff is so much more emotional knowing what's going to happen, I think. So, I mean, it really does hit a lot harder, that opening sequence where they set that up.
Yeah, it's great. No, it works really well because we just get enough time to know these characters. And, we know that there have been attacks from...
sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
But you can also tell that, like, the brother, like, Dwayne is the tough brother. Like, he's the one that really knows how to handle himself. Whereas the other brother, he's the family man. He's got, wife and his kid. He's kind of the beta of the two of them. And there are little subtle things that they do. I mean, the wife treats John Wayne more like their dad than his brother.
Well, yeah, apparently there was a cutout, a subplot where there was a little more insinuation of sexual tension between the wife and John Wayne character. Really? So okay. I think you definitely pick up on that.
There's some weirdness, between the wife
and John Wayne. Really happy he's there. She's more excited than the brother is that he's there. Yeah. I think that's part of that coming out. I
insinuated that it was because she was felt safer. That,
maybe. I mean, you can read it that way.
Things are dangerous, and I'd rather have this guy who knows how to handle himself than my husband.
But part of that is, I think, a romantic subtext too, or a little sexual attraction because he's so alpha. But he also seems like a guy that can't really sit down and settle. On just living a family life out in farming and dealing with cattle and stuff. But then there's an attack. We see that there's Native Americans coming, and the sun's starting to set. And we see how scared everybody's getting. The husband tells the wife subtly through code to try to not scare the kids. They tell the boy to go somewhere, I think. The oldest lights a lantern, and the mom freaks out and tells her to shut it, and then the oldest realizes what's about to happen and screams with Terry. See her reaction.
Well, the dad he's like, I'm going to go maybe shoot some jackrabbits, lying. He knows that the natives are out there.
Well, that's what I know. That's what the mom knows what that means too. That's the little code they were speaking in to try to not freak out the kids. And then they have the youngest go hide behind a grave, which was kind of a weird choice. I still don't understand that really. I don't know why they thought that was a better option, but we see the little girl
hold up. Their whole defense of their home made no sense to me. Like, what are they gonna do? You got a gun? Like, yeah, I mean, you probably can't take out 20 of these guys, and they have guns too. But you're in a way better position to just stick your rifle out the window and pick the guys off. It just seemed. The whole defense of the home was poorly planned. I
was like, yeah, exactly. You can find a spot to shoot and take as many out as possible because you have the fortified position. You have the defensive advantage. They're coming at you.
You're also skipping the part where John Wayne and his crew they think they're sort of it was a fake out, right? Basically.
Well, there were cattle. The cattle were stolen. So somebody's cattle. I forgot. Yes, there's cattle. So a bunch of all the men folk go out to try to find the cattle.
I also was like, why is John Wayne leaving? That's also a stupid decision on his part. He's like, let them chase the cattle down. I'm staying here. Something's fishy. He kind of let his brother and his brother's family die. It's all a little on him. It's a little.
He probably feels guilty, I suspect, a little bit. I mean, it's not over.
Based on what he does in response, for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's not overstated, but I think that's fair. I think he's. And even then, as they're going to try before they find the cattle,
at least he and the nephew, they both didn't need to go. One of them should have stayed behind.
Sure. Sure, but they all wanted to go prove how tough they were and punish the people that stole the cattle. And there's a key character who's a nephew. He's an adopted nephew, and he's, I think, 1/8 Cherokee. So, and John Wayne's immediately just a big dick to him.
Yeah, super dick to him. It's really bad. But
yeah, I mean,
it works because
that's who his character is. Yeah, I mean, that's
he would be a
character
dick to this. He's not really their family. He's gonna.
Yes, he reminds him constantly that he's not
clear.
family.
Yeah. You're not my nephew. Don't call me uncle. I'm not your uncle. Like all that shit.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
But then in the end, it hits so hard when he wills him everything he owns. Like
yeah.
It's just it really, honestly, this movie is so devastating. It really is.
Yeah, well, and even as they're on their way out to find the cattle, the nephew, he notices something weird about the tracks, and he's trying to tell, but that gets caught up in the racism and what are you calling me?
Yeah.
And then somebody comes up ahead, and I think he's seeing like, okay, this is a trap, and not that I think it was too late at that point to like double back in time, but like they were seeing, oh, that was what was going on, but they didn't quite put it together quickly enough.
Well, and then there's the situation where once they find out, right, they find out that this is a trap. He's like, all right, I'm heading back. I'm going back. And John Wayne's like, you dummy. Like, you got to feed the horse. You got to cool it down. The horse, you're never going to make it. So he knows all that, which I think is such a cool touch.
Oh, he's a pragmatist.
What's the other guy, Dobby? What's the sort of mentally.
The Mose?
Yeah. He's with it. You know, he's like, you should have listened to him. And so then they kind of.
You should have listened to your pa or your uncle. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he's a pragmatist, and he absolutely knows how things work. He just understands what's happening all the time. Nothing gets by him. He's really sharp and aware of everything all the time. So, yeah, he waits. I mean, even though everybody wants to rush back, he's waiting. Like, we got to feed the horse. The horse needs a rest. We're like 40 miles out. They can't do a full sprint.
You'll never make it, yeah.
So, got to be able to get back. And he does.
Knowing that if we're attacked, they're all dead already. Like, there's nothing we can do about it.
Correct. It's pointless.
We can get there when we can get there, but we can't get there any faster than our horse will take us.
Right. And your horse will just die in the process, and you'll have to walk and get there slower anyway, you know. But it's great because we see the terror on the part of the family, and it cuts away. The last thing we see is the Native American Scar, who's the head of this particular command.
Who's clearly like a white guy in makeup. It's really bad. But
Correct. It's not great. And this is where it'd be fair to point out that there's still a lot of problematic aspects of a 50s Western. This might be one of the least problematic, but it's still fairly problematic.
Well, perpetuates the, cowboys and Indians kind of.
Well, this has a little more nuance than most of them do, I think.
A little bit, yeah.
Because it starts with, we're identifying with the family, but the scope does broaden later on, and we see that chief, we learn later that he's got 2 of his sons have been killed by white people.
And then we also learned that he killed the Martin's family, his real family, his biological family.
Yeah. But then we also see that there's innocent Native Americans being killed by white people, like the woman that he accidentally marries. She gets murdered, and a whole village of people, including kids and women, get murdered by
Union soldiers, right?
Correct.
Union soldiers. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we, if this is one of the things where it's like, if I was going to have more of a criticism, I want them to hit harder how much the Native Americans were devastated and how much this mutual conflict is at best mutual, and really it's probably worse because the white people had all the superior weapons and resources, and so they were able to inflict way more damage on the Native Americans than vice versa. But we do get that broader focus that this is just like this perpetual cycle of violence that's going on back and forth. But I loved that we see the terror of the family before they die, and then we see Ethan come back looking at the devastation. We don't see inside. We don't see inside the house ever again, I don't think.
No,
he goes in.
On fire. Yeah.
He goes inside. He looks and he doesn't let anybody else go in. He says, "Don't let him in." And you can just see, okay, they're all dead. We see the funeral. So the mom, the father, and the son are dead. The oldest daughter and the youngest daughter were taken as captives.
And that's the part of seeing it the second time, because the first time I was not super clear on who's still alive, because they don't really say it outright. That obviously there are one of the girls. I guess I just thought it was the one girl that was still alive that he gave the medallion to. But then you later hear the guy who was in love with the other daughter,
Lucy, the oldest one.
Right, wanted to go after. So you learn, oh wait, so she's still alive. So I was just, the first time I was a little confused. This time it's clear to me who they're searching for. There's the two girls.
Yep. But not for long, because they find out the older one was murdered and raped.
He goes down the one ridge and comes back, and he sits down. And I mean, this is John Wayne, like the best acting. I've seen a bunch of John Wayne's movies.
Oh, this is his best performance.
He is like
by far.
He's.
I love him in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, but this is his best performance for sure. It's nuanced. It's great. And that scene, because you know so much about his character, he comes back without his coat, and the other two characters are like, "What? Where's your coat?" Yeah. And he's not a character who's just going to absentmindedly forget his coat.
He's like, "Oh, I must have left it back there." Yeah.
And you see him look. It's the only time you see him look frazzled the entire movie. He never looks frazzled before or after. It's just that one scene.
It's like he saw something that he can never unsee.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's the line later on where he's like, "Don't ever ask me about that again."
Like, I'm not going to spell it out. Do you want me to spell it? I'm not going to. I just don't ask. And then he basically lets the man. It's the man who is going to marry her do a suicide run. I mean. There's three of them. They see the Comanche tribe. They can't get to him because they just don't have enough to take it by force. Or they let the guy just run to his death because he didn't want to live anymore because his betrothed was raped and murdered. It's just a crazy sequence. It's plausible. It makes perfect sense. And then at that point, they lose the thread. I don't know exactly what happens. I mean, they were right there. I would assume they would have been able to track them. That's where it cuts away, and they've been wandering for 2 years or whatever. I don't know why they lost the tribe. You know what I mean? Like the guy kills him.
Gunfight. We skipped the gunfight over the.
That was before this. That was before all this. Everybody goes like one guy gets shot.
They sneak him up at night. They sneak up at night, and yeah.
And they're talking about it, and then that's where it comes out that Lucy's.
That's right.
I don't know if he's fiance. They let him make a suicide run. He dies. That's fine. That's the end of his story.
And then they cut to winter, right? Isn't
yes,
it just like
and they've been wandering around there in like Wyoming or somewhere.
It's like 2 years or a year later, yeah.
So yeah, I don't never understood why they lost them at that point. They're right there. It seems like they could have tracked them, but I don't know. I didn't understand. But I mean, at that point it was 2 years, and they worked their way back. Eventually, to Texas where the homestead is. And man, I don't know.
Well, and then Martin and the one woman, they start their relationship. That's the one part of the movie that I don't know if I needed all of that. There's a backbone to it, and you start to feel for Martin a little more, and it really starts to turn to his story at that point. Yeah, because
John Wayne has nothing to lose. He's got no family. You get why he would just like, I'm going to devote my life to this. What the fuck else am I going to do? But he has, a woman who wants to love him, potentially a job. He could start a family and start a life, but he's devoting so many of his, quote unquote prime years to do this, and at the cost of his relationship to this woman who he loves. No, I mean, it's not great. It's not my favorite part of the movie. I do think
that's more of like contrast. A 50s rom-com-y kind of love story.
They did have to throw it in.
Yeah.
But I like the contrast.
The reason why with Casablanca, like there's parts of that movie I don't love because of the love story aspect stuff. But
I like the contrast between John Wayne, nothing to lose, and Martin, who
if you made this movie now, that you'd spend a little less time.
Oh, I wouldn't have them go back to the homestead at all. I mean, I would have them spend 5-6 years, and it would be a tour through basically the devastation of the Native Americans. We'd see other tribes, we'd see people on reservations, and we'd see, buffaloes devastated, stuff like you see some of that.
It's like the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's just like these guys chasing each other the whole time. You know what I mean? And you do go through with Civil War shit. Like, I mean, that's probably if I was gonna say the second best Western, I would probably say that. And then Tombstone's in the mix. Those three would probably be my three favorite Westerns.
I don't share your love of Tombstone, but that's okay. Those
Tombstone,
first two I love. Awesome. I also love
Tombstone
Unforgiven.
Actually steals a lot from this movie. There's a lot it rips off from this movie.
That's fine. We don't. This is you can pick Tombstone sometime, and we can talk about it. It's definitely not my top three.
I definitely will.
It's definitely not better than Unforgiven. For sure. Oh my God, no, it isn't. But whatever. A different discussion for a different time. But eventually, I mean, they just pursue these guys over. It ends up being 5 years, I think. So it starts in 1868, ends in 1873, and Martin accidentally marries a woman because he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's bartering. He thinks he's bartering for something else. And boy, he's just so mean to her. I always feel so bad for her. He like kicks her down the hill and is just like yelling at her constantly.
Yeah, then that's also the 50s sort of comedy, like slapsticky. She rolled down the hill. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, and Ethan's cackling.
Right. Yeah. Could have left without that. But I mean, it's an old movie that you got to put up with stuff like that in older films.
Just like you got to put up with sexism in boner comedies from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, true. There are things that date themselves, and
but I don't know. It's and all the while we get to see just how much Ethan, John Wayne's character, hates Native people. I mean, he wants to murder as many buffaloes as possible. I mean, we see him. He just wants to blindly at one point shoot as many buffaloes as he can so that they can't be used by Native people.
Well, he has rage. I don't know. You're saying that's hate for Native Americans? I think he just has blind rage for what happened. Was my reading on that?
No, I view it as
he's consumed by his revenge.
But he blames all Native people. It's not a specific rage. I think he's okay. It's not like the Scar guy wasn't going to get the buffaloes. It was some other random Native people who are going to have less buffaloes to potentially use over the course of winter. And Martin tries to stop him.
Well, there's also the part where like the neighbor guys try to kill him. He sets that trap with Martin where Martin's like, hey, I think somebody's following us. And he's like, no, we just go to sleep. And then he sets the little dummy and then hides out and the guy shoots at him and he kills the guy. And, they have their little back and forth. So like there is aspects of it that show that it's like the white men are also, everybody's terrible, there's
no law. There's no real government, right? I mean, the guy owned a store, but I mean, it's just people out in the West with guns. That's where it's like I always view the West as a sort of libertarian fancy because the government can't reach you. It's you make your own laws, you make your own rules. And even then, I mean, he shot those guys, and I know he's buddies with the people who might arrest him. And
then a warrant gets issued because all these guys were shot in the back, and it's clear that Ethan had the coins or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, I think that part's that middle sort of end of the second act drags a bit, but then once you get to the scene where they find Lucy, and then from there, like that, and then there's that shootout scene where John Wayne gets hit, like all that I think from that until the end of the movie, it just kind of really goes along fast and
oh sure,
awesome.
I mean, it doesn't drag.
The whole wedding piece is great too.
But yeah, to see this movie doesn't drag for me at all. I mean, it's not like so in Godfather the scenes in Sicily drag for me. This doesn't quite have those. I don't love the scenes at the back with the people in the homesteads in Texas, but
reading the letter, I mean, that's kind of it
was a good cool framing device.
Yeah. Where he's sort of telling her what's happened. It's like a montage, but not really a montage because it's
right.
Through
no, I think it worked really well. So we see how devastated she is. We get to learn what's happened, get the highlights of their search basically. So I thought it worked really, really well. And I also just like, this is a little touch. You just get to see how exciting in those days it was to get a letter. I mean, like 2 letters in 1 year.
2 letters in 1 year, yeah.
When it's like every day we get 8 pieces of junk from people trying to sell you shit. It's like very exciting to get a letter in 1870. Just a nice little touch. No, but I mean, it all ties together so well. I mean, this is one of those movies where I think every piece just like complements each other super well because we set up, that eventually Ethan has begrudging respect for Martin because he spent 5 years with the guy all across the West looking for Debbie.
Well, and then Martin eventually saves his life too.
Isn't that sequence where Scar attacks after he
gets hit with the arrow, Martin brings him back and heals him or whatever. I mean, he cares for him to bring him back. I mean, he would have died, I assume, He
does get the poison out and they have the exchange and he's like, in case I die.
Yeah,
that's true.
He gives him the will. Yeah.
No, that's true.
So the one piece that the first time I was like really confused. So they find Debbie, right? And she's I think, pretending, right? They find the tribe and they know it's Scar, but Scar doesn't know it's them, or does he?
I think he does. I think he does know.
They fight, right? They've been searching for this guy for 5 years. They finally find him, and they have this sort of amicable sit down in this discussion about trading, and it was unclear. I mean, they know that that's Scar because Scar, he has the medallion, and they know it's him, and they know Debbie's there somewhere. They just don't see her. But like, they don't fight. There's no agitation. They have this sort of conversation back and forth where Scar's sort of talking to them as if he knows them, but I was just confused.
I viewed them as they both knew each other. They didn't say it explicitly. They were both kind of playing it coy. But he points out the medal specifically, and I think he has Debbie hand over the scalps as a power play. I think they both knew what was going on.
Well, okay, so Debbie, it's been 5 years. She was like a little kid. She's maybe 10 or something like that, so she's a teenager now.
She's 14. She goes from 9 to 14.
Okay. So, like, my kids are 9 years old. If they got kidnapped by Native Americans, I would hope 5 years from now they would, like, if they saw me, they would immediately be like, save me.
Well, so Debbie's role is interesting. Her character is the one with the most ambiguity. They couldn't just grab her and go because they would have been killed. That's why Ethan and Martin don't do anything. Ethan grabs Martin and says, don't even react. He's trying to play coy.
We'll come back later and get her, right? That was the idea.
Correct. And Scar's just being tough, I think, and just wants to show them that he has the power in that situation. But they asked.
Wouldn't you worry that the second you left, he's
they were a bit. Martin says, since he saw us, why didn't he attack, or why didn't they kill us then? And he said, I don't. And John Wayne says, like, I don't know, Native American hospitality, Comanche hospitality. Maybe they had some like code where if you accept somebody as a guest, you can't kill them for some cultural reason.
Why weren't they worried that they would just kill Debbie immediately?
Well, John Wayne wouldn't have cared if they had just killed Debbie. I don't know. I don't know why Martin.
Why wouldn't he have cared? That turn didn't make sense to me too. He was willing to kill her.
That was the whole thing. You didn't understand that part of it. Oh, he hates. This is the thing. He hates
because she had like agreed to be part of their tribe, but she didn't in the end, right? In the end, she wanted to come home. So I was just that whole sequence confused the shit out of me.
Well, it is because he thinks she's turned and she's now tainted. And she's not white anymore, right? I mean,
wouldn't you have just assumed that was what was happening the whole time you're chasing her?
Yeah, he was, but they even say before they go that last time, like, Ethan's going to put a bullet in her brain. It wasn't a turn. I think it builds to it correctly.
He's just hunting her to kill her?
Eventually, after a while, after it became apparent that, years were going to go by and he couldn't get to her straight away, yes, I think so. He hated Native Americans so much they would rather she be dead than live out her life as a Native person. Like, yes, that's what everybody believes.
So what happens in the movie, they have this sit down, then they go back to their camp, and then she runs out to them, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the first step, because she doesn't say anything to them in the tent. It's not even clear, like, if she knows who they are, right? Because they're like, wait, does she not recognize us?
She says
they're confused.
Yeah, but she says she recognized them.
Well, when she runs out to them, she's like, go, like, leave here. They're, I'm a part of the tribe now. That's the first time where John Wayne's like, well, fuck this. Like, no. I think that's the turning point for him where he's like, okay, now she has to die. I think the whole time leading up to that, he was just trying to save her. But once she said, I'm part of the tribe, this is my family now, then he was like, no, now you got to die.
I think it alludes to that earlier. When they go to the Union camp, and they're like, do you have any white girls here? Because they had just attacked.
The one girl's not speaking English. She's talking
He's
nonsense.
Like, they ain't white no more. Yeah. Like, it alludes that is foreshadowing that in his worldview, if you're he's
concerned. He's like, oh, is Lucy or Debbie, whatever her name is she like this? Is she going to be like this? And she was initially when they first saw her. But then when she runs out to the camp to them, she's lucid and she's like, just go. I don't want to come with you. And that was confusing to me. Why did she say that?
I think she identified culturally as a Native person at that point.
But then the next time they see her, she's like, save me. Get me out of here. Take me out of here. Like,
Well,
what changed?
he says, "Come with me." I don't know what changed with her. She's the most enigmatic character. I don't know what changed from her worldview. But Martin wakes her up, right? And he says, "Let me go in and try and save her." At that point, Ethan's like, we'll just charge these guys and kill them. I don't care.
Well, because Debbie runs out to them, and then they attack, and Martin and
and maybe they could have talked her into going with them, but they were attacked.
Run off, right? They run off and hide.
Well, yeah, right. And they were attacked in the middle of that, so maybe they could have convinced her to go or not. I don't know. We don't know how that conversation might have played out, because presumably, yes, they could have hopped her onto a horse and left, but they were attacked in the middle of it. And I think they maybe saw that she left. I don't know. That sequence is the most confusing, where she kind of could leave but tells them not to. Maybe she's conflicted. Maybe she's just, there's nothing for me back at that home that I haven't been to in 5 years. I don't know. But I think at some point Martin wakes her up and says, "Will you come with me?" And she says, "Yes, I'll go with you." Like,
and then all of a sudden she snapped out of it. She's like, "Yes, take me home. Like, save me."
Yeah, I don't know. Although it's not clear. We think John Wayne might kill her at first. Like, there's still
Martin gets in front of her and is like, "You got to shoot me first."
That's his big character arc, is that he values her enough to not kill her, even though she spent 5 years living as a native person.
And then they take her home. It's got this amazing ending. Like, we didn't mention it, but the way the movie starts is probably one of the most iconic shots of the doorway. That's the John Ford Searchers doorway shot, which is in like every Western. Now, if you go back and watch, like, what was a couple years ago, it was like supposed to win Best Picture, Power of the Dog.
Oh, right? Yeah.
There's the through the doorway shot where the camera walks through the doorway. That's how this movie starts. You're seeing it through the doorway, and you walk through and you look up at the Western frontier. It's amazing. And then the movie ends where he carries her into the doorway, and John Wayne turns around and walks away, and then the door closes. Just some of the best, like, directing. I mean, we haven't talked about John Ford at all, but like the way it begins and ends is pretty iconic.
No, it is. It's great. And there's some of the usual allusions to, like, all the blood and toil that was spent creating the West. Like, there's a woman who's like, "Yeah, someday this will be a nice civil place to live, but maybe 100 years long after her bones are in the ground." It's sort of like romanticizing the people that made the West. But no, it looks great. I mean, every scene looks incredible.
It looks incredible. From 56, like, Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is what, 62. Like 6 years later?
Correct.
And that movie looks so much older than this movie. That's weird.
Well, he chose to make it black and white, which is part of it. But it's also a smaller scope. This is just so majestic, and we just see so many different area. I mean, just so much space all over the place. It's just great. We see, rivers and.
Well, it's filmed on location. There were some sets too, like when the one swamp where John Wayne kills the white dudes that try to jump him. That's
the
all
traitors.
On a set.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But no, I mean, it looks amazing. I assume this is monument value. He shot a lot of his movies in Utah, in the place called Monument Valley, where there's just these big rocks and sand and desert everywhere. It looks incredible. I mean, it's super well directed. The only time I got a little confused is that second to the last when Debbie comes out. I kind of lose the thread, like, where was Debbie in that? And she just kind of she was right next to the two guys, and then she's kind of gone. I think somebody grabbed her, but I don't know. But I know she just becomes this weird cipher for, like, native versus white people's struggle and cultural identity and values. And I don't know why she makes her switch here. It's incredibly well shot. It's great. The music, and then what's John Wayne going to do? How's he going to spend his remaining years? Who knows? Confederacy's long since gone. Just going to go probably fight Native Americans, I suppose, until he's too.
I mean, we don't get an age, but, like, if his brother's already got, like, teenage kids, I bet he's in his 40s, or he's supposed to be 40s or 50s at that point.
He starts in his 40s, I bet. Yeah. I'm sure he ends in his 50s.
I mean, in real life, he's probably older than that, but, like, I think his character is probably supposed to be.
So he's got some gray hairs, I think.
Then when people lived till they're, 70 was a long life, He's at the twilight of his life.
Yeah, so I don't know how he spent his remaining years, but I mean, Debbie comes back finally. The goal is achieved after much toil, and we get our quasi happy ending. I mean, it's a brutal movie, but it's as successful as is plausible given what happened. Yeah, man, I don't have anything. I don't know what else to say. It's an incredible movie. I honestly don't think there's anything really I would change. I don't really think there's a frame that I would switch.
No, I would just say, like, I do like that it's Martin and John Wayne chasing the two guys chasing after this Native American tribe. It would be kind of cool if it was like a posse.
Yeah,
I think there would, and they get picked off slowly. You'd have a little scene where something happens. One of them gets dysentery or something. Something kind of. Just the two guys. There's just too much of just the two of them.
I think it's important because John Wayne starts out such a dick to Martin because, like, oh, you're an 8th Indian. You might as well be out there living out there. I don't care that you've lived with this family and you work on this farm. Doesn't matter. You fail. If you're not 100% white, you are a minority in John Wayne's worldview. And that is slowly, very slowly whittled away with just the tiniest bit, which is about as much growth as somebody like John Wayne is capable of. I know it made me think of the movie A New Leaf, which I know you didn't like because him choosing not to kill her at the end is his big moment in a dark comedy. And that's his growth. But that's, to me, John Wayne. It's like, all right, I'm choosing not to kill her just because she's got 5 years of Native people living on her. I'm gonna not murder her. That's his big character arc. I'm gonna hate Native American people a little bit less. Just because somebody has a little bit of Native American in them, they can still be a white person. That's as much as you get from John Wayne's character you're ever going to get. So I don't know. But I don't know. I love pretty much every sequence because I was worried that some of those dancing scenes were going to be like, no, I think it works really well. It is a little silly. The fight goes on a little long, I guess.
Yeah,
so Martin comes back at the wedding.
Yeah.
And his woman is going to marry this guy who's kind of a goober. I don't know. He plays guitar, though. Good for him.
There's some shredding, a little bit of shredding in this movie.
Yes, hardcore shredding. Slash would shed tears of joy.
The best guitar we've had in a long time in movies we've picked. So
that's true. I mean, have we had any guitar in any movie?
No, there's been a lack of guitar.
We get like
in the movies we picked,
flutes or whatever in Midsommar. I mean, the fight is a little silly, but it's like it did help to break up just a little bit of the tension. Like, all right, we're just going to have a silly fight over this woman who's clearly loving it too. I mean, you see the grin on her face. She's like giddy that these guys are fighting over her.
Is that a thing? Would a woman like that, watching two men fight over her?
I don't know. I think she liked that the guy she really wanted cared enough to fight. I think that was her. Like, he likes me enough that he's willing to fight this guy.
They could have killed each other, like.
Well, no, but they did the whole, like, we'll just let him work it out a little bit. Let's let him run. And they both got exhausted at the end of fight. I like to see, because I think in real world, if you're not somebody who's like a trained fighter, after like 2 or 3 minutes of fighting, you would start to get exhausted, and they look like they can barely stand. It's like, oh, thank you. They don't look like they're totally fine. They don't have like a grizzled bruise. They look strung out after the fight. But I mean, are you a 5 out of 5? Is there going to be? Are you gonna?
No, I would say. I mean, it's one of the most classic movies ever made.
Oh, see, this makes me happy. 5 out of 5 for me too. Just I'm giddy. All right. I'm glad this wasn't torture watching. So you liked it even better the second time?
Yeah, I actually think because I was less confused about some of the plot points and I think the emotional stuff hit hard, like knowing the devastation that's about to come, like the scene. I think the scene where John Wayne with the coat and the one girl where must have left it back there, knowing that's her. He saw her dead body and couldn't handle like that. I think that hits a lot harder knowing what he saw. It's one of those movies. I think on rewatch it actually is more rewarding.
And you realize how few scenes you get with the family all together. It's really not that long. It's like 5 to 10 minutes before they're gone. It's just like so fleeting. I mean, he just gets back and then they leave to go chase after the cattle, and then, man, this is
the one thing I like. So, would we assume if John Wayne was there, he would have just killed all of those Native Americans? They wouldn't have killed his family.
His strategy would have been
how tough is John Wayne supposed to be in this movie? Because the traitor guys, the white guys, he kills them all. Bam, 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 like nothing. And now he does take an arrow, or he takes an arrow, right? He does.
Yeah, poisoned arrow.
He gets hit.
To the arm.
I mean, how many people does he kill in this movie? I'm just saying, like, what level of badass are we talking?
This is prime badass John Wayne. I don't know, like if he were there
when there's a shootout across the water, he's capping guys left and right. He takes the one guy's gun, right? Doesn't he? And starts shooting guys too. Like he is just taking dudes out.
He's a master strategist. He doesn't make mistakes. So if he was on the homestead, he would have maximized their ability to defend the place for sure. But yeah, I mean, he would have taken a lot of them out for sure. Yeah, he's tough. I mean, the one guy, the preacher guy, gives him an order. He's like, oh, it's all in this one order, but if you don't give me another one.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, and he's like, that'll be the last order you ever give me. Yeah.
Yep. He just doesn't like taking shit from anybody. Likes doing things his way, and he knows his shit. I mean, it's just the quintessential John Wayne performance. It's incredible. So yes, this is. Not that I've seen all of John Ford's movies. I probably need to see more, but.
I definitely have seen Stagecoach and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Those are the.
Yeah, and I love those movies, and I really love Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, but this is his best movie. I mean, as much as I love The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, I think it's great, but this is it's immaculate. It's incredible. I haven't seen it in 15 years, and I was worried it wouldn't hold up, or it would be just you were going to have weird hang-ups about it being an old movie, and I'm glad you did because I think it's phenomenal.
So John Wayne is John Wayne's best movie too, right?
I think so. Of what I've seen, yes. I like True Grit. That's not a John Ford one, but True Grit's really good.
I've only seen the remake, the Jeff.
Well, if you like old westerns, you'll like the original. Yeah, you won't have a bad time watching it.
What's the Red River is one that I really like.
She wore a yellow ribbon.
There's also the one with who's the singer guy, one of the Rat Pack dudes. Is it El Dorado?
He has one Rio Bravo, which I really
Bravo,
like.
Yep, I like that too. I've seen a lot of his movies. I went on like a John Wayne kick for a while.
You've probably seen like 10% of his movies. He's in a shitload, and we haven't even hit his World War II movies. We're just these are just like the westerns. He also has a boatload of I don't know if he's in the Green Berets and a bunch of other like World War II movies as well. Just he was the guy if you needed a tough guy in a military situation.
He aged. If you look at Stagecoach to this, like he aged a lot in 6 years. He looks a lot older because in Stagecoach I was like, shit, he's like a young man in that movie.
I think Stagecoach is 39, so I think it's a bigger gap than that.
Okay, all right, so we are talking a bigger
gap. But he had a very unhealthy lifestyle. I mean, he drank a lot, and I think he only ate steak. He just like ate steak every night. So we're
talking, 15 years difference or whatever. But boy, he looks a lot older.
I mean, I know he's not a healthy dude, really.
We haven't talked about it. We talked about it before we started recording, but born in Iowa, right?
Yeah.
So for those Iowa people that are still listening to this, you can claim John Wayne as your own. He's from. Oh, where was he born? Morrison, Iowa?
Morrison, that's right. Some small town. There's an exit off of I-80 somewhere. I think it's the western half of the state. And it's like John Wayne's birthplace, this exit. Some place you would never otherwise exit.
So there is like a landmark. My wife's one of her grandmothers was like a big John Wayne. Like
sure.
Memorabilia and all sorts of shit. Like really.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Winterset, Iowa. Actually.
Okay, yeah, that's not terribly far from me. Or maybe it's on 35. It's one of those two highways. But no,
part of the Des Moines metropolitan area. You could drive to it right now.
I could. Yeah, I mean, we could just keep talking as I drive to Winterset to find the place late at night. But westerns always bum me out because my grandpa was really into westerns, and when I was a kid, they were just like old, boring, dumb movies. And I wish I'd gotten into westerns earlier because I would have liked to I don't know, what was his favorite western? I'm sure John Wayne was probably his favorite actor of all time, but what were some movies you like? Because I probably could have really watched and enjoyed it. I mean, there's a whole bunch.
George Washington Carver is also from Winterset.
The Peanut guy.
Yeah.
Very exciting. And we haven't hit on. Have you seen any of the Jimmy Stewart westerns, like Winchester 73?
No.
Because he did a string of them in the late 40s and the 50s too. Like this is.
I mean, the Western genre. There's like one a year that comes out now.
Yeah, I mean, the era is past.
What was the one that came out? It was a Netflix one last year. It was like an all-black cast. It was like Black Cowboys. Idris Elba was in it. I really liked that movie. That was super good. I'll look that up while you chat about your other favorite Westerns.
No, well, it's fine. I could chat about my other favorite Westerns, but I don't know. We talked last time about Mallrats, and you kind of lamented the end of a certain era of comedies. I mean, I like that.
The Harder They Fall is what it was called on Netflix. Check it out. I like that movie a lot.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just like that movies go in and out of style because we had a rash of them in the 50s. Then they kind of hibernated for a while. I mean, they still made some. And they kind of came back to the 70s, but they were all 70s-fied, like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and a little weirder. And then
I did not like that movie.
Then we get the Clint Eastwood era. He's in a bunch of westerns like High Plains Drifter.
Well, yeah, I mean you got the spaghetti westerns too. You kind of
that's Italy, but yes, that's fine. But I was just thinking in the U.S. that helped bring back the westerns, I think, for a little bit, and then they really hibernated. I can't think of a single 80s like pure western. I mean they had to have some, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. And there aren't that many 90s ones.
Well, the 90s there was the Wyatt Earp stuff and
well, there's a little bit like Unforgiven.
Kevin Costner was in
Dances with Wolves. You'd call that a western.
A western, probably.
Yeah, so a little run in the early 90s, and then the Sam Raimi movie with The Quick and the Dead. So we had a few.
Yeah, there'll be a few that pop up.
Legends of the Fall, but there was like a 3 or 4 year period, and then they kind of just hibernated again. So they might come up, but I like that these movies exist and you can go back and watch them, and then movies change and they make them differently.
Is it like what we'll say about Marvel? Like, remember when all those superhero movies were like the thing? And
when is that going to end, though? I feel like the problem is
it will.
When? When do you think? Should we take a bet?
I think we're close. I mean, Guardians I think is pretty good, but by all accounts it's its own movie because James Gunn is leaving
But James Gunn, that guy who did a great job with Guardians, he's now in charge of the DC universe.
Well, yeah, but
he's doing a reset of the DC universe, and
that might not go great. I don't know. I mean,
it can't go worse than their first experience. I mean, DC really bungled.
I didn't love the Suicide Squad movie that he made. I didn't think that was very good. If that's the direction it's going.
But they'll have to make money. Aren't these movies still making money?
Not when you consider what they cost. I bet Ant-Man and the Wasp was a loss. With what that movie cost.
In terms of marketing.
They have to make like $1 billion for them to be profitable at this point.
I see. I don't know. Not all of them are I don't know. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Let's see here. I'm curious about this. But
I think when these companies start losing money, which is why they've shifted, they're not doing any straight to like streaming shit anymore because they realize like we can't just keep bleeding money on these things. Like Suicide Squad made no money. I know it was like kind of, at the height of the pandemic and whatnot, but like it went straight to HBO Max and it made like $12 million at the box office. Like and then they gave this guy the keys to the kingdom. It's like, I liked Guardians 1, Guardians 3 by all accounts is good, but has James Gunn made really anything else that's good? I don't know.
I mean,
and Ant-Man and the Wasp, all accounts is really bad.
But it made $470 million, and
but it probably cost $500 million.
I think it cost $200 million. I'm trying to find that. I'm not able to figure out how much it costs.
Well, that's the production, and then what they double that for the marketing.
So even if they spent $400 million in total, that's netted $70 million, and that's considered like the worst one recently. I don't know. I hope you're right. Bottom line is, Eric, I hope you're right. I don't want to be right.
I think we're approaching the beginning of the end.
I don't know. The slate of movies that are coming out, it feels like we're stuck in sequel franchise hell forever.
All I'm saying is I think at some point we'll look back at
I hope so.
Well, it's like Peckinpah made some good westerns too. Like there'll be somewhere like, oh yeah, remember that superhero movie? Oh, that one was really good. but most of it'll die off and kind of sprinkle out here and there, and we'll see a few, and there'll be something else that'll come out.
I hope you're right, Eric. I hope you're right, because
we're going on a 20-year period at this point with that shit from, not quite 20, but 2008 is when it sort of all kicked off.
No, sure. No, this era began in 2008. There were superhero movies before it, but they weren't. It was like that was still in the we're going to do 3 movies kind of vibe.
The extended universe that's the new thing.
Yeah, I mean, for a while it was like, hey, yeah, let's just make a trilogy of movies. We'll do Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and then boom. We're doing X-Men 1, 2, and 3.
An original Western. Is there, like, Unforgiven, which is why I think people love that movie so much, was kind of the last where it's like, oh, this is new, this is different. Like, that idea of a Western, it's kind of already all been done, right? I mean, is there any...
Well, that's true of most genres. How do you do a new action movie? Like, I love the John Wick movies, but it's not doing anything new.
Die Hard has been done a million times. Like, it's just Die Hard on a thing, or Die Hard, this kind of movie. I don't know. You can only stretch it so far.
Sure.
I think Marvel is stretched far.
Oh, it's what
we've also kind of passed where the comic books got good. I mean, all the good comic book arcs have kind of already been used. Like, the Infinity Saga is probably the height of comic books too, if you ask me. But
you could be right. I don't know enough about the comic books to know what the good narratives are and what they aren't. But I mean, anything that's risky or interesting, they're just gonna.
The Secret Wars is great. I mean, that if they do that well, that could be great. Which I think is where they're going, the next big Marvel crossover event. But
okay. Well, anyway, I very much want you. I'm ready for this era to end. I'm ready for superhero movies to be in the past. And to do remember when
there'll be all AI characters going forward anyways. They won't even have actors. It'll all just be computer generated people.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, they'll own the likeness for every year, sadly, right? But I want to be in that future where, remember when superhero movies were out all the time? Remember how crazy that was? It was 2 every year for a freaking decade.
2 every year? Jesus, there's more than that.
Well, sure.
There's a Flash movie coming out. There's Batman and I mean, there's
with the original Batman, Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I actually think it looks all right.
I'm okay. Fair enough. I have no interest in it, but hopefully it'd be good. I don't know. I like that Michael Keaton's back. But all right, we are straying far away from the beaten path here.
I think we have to do a superhero movie at some point. We really haven't.
Well, we're not quite ready for you to pick, but we're almost there. You can do some. Maybe that's your.
I did not pick a superhero movie.
All right. Well, all right. I got a bonus hint then. It's not going to be a superhero movie. That eliminates 10% of the movies that
we really haven't done. We did one Star Wars movie.
We did Batman.
We did. We did the original Batman. Yeah, Michael Keaton's Batman. That's true.
Which even then was very, very different than this current era of Marvel. But all right, Eric, let's do our 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Should I, or not Kevin Bacon? Field of Dreams. Goodness gracious. Should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I was plagued throughout Searchers. I was like, who is Martin? Like the actor.
Yeah.
Who is that
Same
guy?
With me. Yeah.
I recognize his face, but I cannot put it. So I looked and I realized what I knew him from. I don't know if it's the same thing you're going to know him from, but before, William Shatner was cast as Kirk, they shot a pilot for Star Trek, and the character was Captain Pike, and he was that captain. They ended up using that pilot into an actual episode of the original series as a flashback. He was the guy that had the Enterprise before Kirk. So that's what I knew him from. It was the eyes mostly. He kept taunting me. It was just like, man, there's just something I really know well, and I can't remember what he's from. So that's how I recognized him, because I don't think I'd seen any of the other movies that he's done. So that was it for me. But he is in it's not a Western. It looks like one of the kind of a 50s noir called Gun for a Coward. It stars Fred McMurray. Fred McMurray is known for a lot of things. He's the lead in Double Indemnity. He's also got a key role in The Apartment.
Old noirs is another genre I really like.
Sure.
In terms of old movies, but
let's okay. Feel free to pick one. I love that genre as well. They're great. Old-timey movies that I love, for sure. But yeah, The Apartment is a great black comedy that stars Jack Lemmon. who is in JFK with Kevin Costner, who is in Field of Dreams.
I also went with Martin. His name is Jeffrey Hunter, right? Same guy.
Yeah. Yep.
He's in a movie called King of Kings, where he plays a person by the name of Jesus.
He's Jesus. He has a Jesus
I believe
movie.
he's
Okay.
Jesus. And
Sure.
in that movie is an actor by the name Rip Torn.
Oh my God. Rip Torn's in that?
He plays Judas. He must have been super young.
Rip Torn plays Judas in King of Kings. Oh my gosh.
I've never seen it, but
I have not either.
He must have been a young man back then, yeah.
Sure, it's one of those titles I've heard floating around because I think it's probably one of those epic 50s or 60s productions.
Like Ten Commandments, something. It's one of those.
Yeah, right. The biblical epic, which is another genre that's mostly completely gone, but
for good reason. But anyways, not mostly. What Aronofsky made that Noah movie. Those
are the exceptions. Noah is a big exception.
Mel Gibson with the Passion
of the Christ, and that was 20 years ago.
Scorsese made one with
that was in the 80s.
Willem Dafoe. A Silence. Scorsese made so they pop over now and then.
Very, very rarely.
The biblical epic movies. One
every decade or two. Yep.
I mean, who doesn't love movies about Jesus?
We all do.
Rip Torn, dodgeball fame, dip, dodge, duck, and dodge. He's also in Men in Black. He's pretty great in that movie. That's how I know him. That was like I think the first time I ever saw him in anything was Men in Black.
Me as well.
Tommy Lee Jones is in Men in Black. He's in a movie called Criminal from 2016, which also stars Kevin Costner.
Okay.
I think I've referenced Criminal before. Never seen it, but it has like Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot and Gary Oldman. It's got like the wildest cast for what looks like a pretty stupid movie.
Sure. But I'm sure the check cleared.
Yeah.
All right.
They got all those actors in it.
So,
all right, yeah. So
time for you to share what we're going to talk about next, but first you're giving me 5 clues. I got a bonus one. It's not a superhero movie.
Close the door on The Searchers. All right, so so next week's movie, let's see, it was released in 1988.
Okay.
So it's from the late 80s ish time.
Got it. Yep. It's not a classic noir. I ruled that genre out.
There's 2 main characters in this movie, and they're both played by the same person.
Oh. Okay. I feel like that should be a dead giveaway, but boy, okay, I don't have
it. Gosh, would this give it away? It was just recently, like this year, it was made into a series for Amazon. So it was like inspired, same title was inspired by this movie, and it was released on Amazon as a series.
Okay.
Just recently, which is why I picked it, but I thought that might give it away. I guess not.
Nope, I don't pay that much attention to what was on Amazon, so okay.
All right, so God, I don't know if anything I can give will help you get this. It stars Jeremy Irons. He plays both of
Dead Ringers?
Yes, Dead Ringers.
Okay.
So, yep.
Oh, I should know that. My brother-in-law talked to me about this. Okay. I was absolutely flummoxed when he told me that they made a series about Dead Ringers. That's crazy.
Have you seen this movie?
I have, yeah. It's been a while. But yes,
you have seen it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. It's on HBO Max.
I love Cronenberg.
That was going to be the last clue, is that it's a Cronenberg movie.
No, I got you.
I thought I was trying to pick something. I've never seen it, but I was trying to pick something you had never seen.
I love it. I've considered doing Videodrome many times. Videodrome's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I have kind of a blind spot with Cronenberg. I've seen The Fly. That might be the only one of his movies I've ever seen.
All right, I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm probably not going to do back-to-back Cronenberg, but I think then we need to do Videodrome at some point.
His son, I've never seen any of his son's movies, and those are, I think, by all accounts, even crazier than.
I saw one of them that's pretty crazy.
Possessor, that's
the one I've seen. Yeah, that one's very crazy.
One last year.
It's like Infinity Pool or something. I don't remember what it's not.
Well, no, I think that's a David Cronenberg movie.
Right.
It's Infinity Pool.
Right.
But his son, Brandon Cronenberg or Brendan.
Oh, you're saying Infinity Pool was okay. I thought that was Brand. Okay, got it.
No, it was some weird sex movie with Kristen Stewart. I think is his son's movie. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways,
it's good to know. I'm glad I know that you have a Cronenberg blind spot.
History of Violence, Eastern Promises. I don't know if I've seen either of those movies.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Those movies are fine. I don't like them as much as
the Future is his movie. Infinity Pool, you're right. I think is his son's movie.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yep.
Fascinating. Okay.
You know, like Crash, where they fuck.
I never saw Crash. I remember seeing a trailer before a VHS in the 90s. It freaked me out. I couldn't figure out what was happening in the movie.
Scanners was Scanners one of his movies?
Oh my gosh, you've not seen Scanners?
No, I haven't seen any.
This is like prime Cronenberg.
I have seen The Dead Zone, which is the Stephen King remake. I have seen that. The book was better than the movie. Oh my god.
Okay, so I am so delighted to know that you have this blind spot.
I mean, I honestly, I think that's it. Those are the only ones.
We're ways away from Halloween.
The Fly, like it's been 20 years.
Did you like The Fly?
I remember. I mean, I was maybe in high school, maybe even younger than that, thinking it was weird as hell.
It is weird, and it gets weirder. Like The Fly is relatively normal. By the time you get to History of Violence and Eastern Promises,
is most like
it gets less crazy.
Yeah.
But in his like 80s period into like Naked Lunch is insane. I think you would hate Naked Lunch because it's just balls to the walls insanity. But I mean, great visual effects. We'll talk Dead Ringers. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But I'm glad because I'm going to keep Videodrome in my back pocket. Just going to keep it there. Bloop, bloop, bloop. You have to get past the fact that it's James Woods, but that's a different problem.
Yeah.
But all right, excellent. Dead Ringers. Next time on the Pod of Dreams.
Thank you.
Bye.
That'll be the day.